Friends, welcome, and welcome back, I hope, to the Vestigo FinTech podcast. I'm Fraser Anderson. Today, I'm joined by two guests, Austin McChord. You can find him at Austin McChord on Twitter, and Carlson Choi at CCLemon8 on Twitter. Austin is a relentless entrepreneur who many of you will know as the founder and CEO of Datto, which was recently sold to Kaseya for $6.2 billion. He is also a founder at Kasana, a medical device company where he is also the CEO, Havoc Robotics, Outsiders Fund, and serves on the boards of Zorus and Shelf. Most importantly for this show, he is a co-founder and chairman at Cork, a cybersecurity solution for managed service providers, or MSPs. And just fair warning, I'm going to use the expression MSP a lot during this show. Carlson is a co-founder and CEO of Cork. Prior to joining Cork, Carlson held technology leadership roles at Datto, Superliminal, Jack in the Box, Jollibee Foods Corporation, Mattel, and Activision Blizzard. He has dedicated his career to launching disruptive industry products and solutions from the early days of online digital gaming, digital life to toys, and mobile food ordering. Carlson, Austin, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
Treat to have you. Austin, as I was preparing some questions, I stumbled across your LinkedIn profile. And for those of you who have not had the joy of seeing Austin's LinkedIn, his profile picture, he is sort of like emerging as if from a pool of multicolored plastic balls. So I think we're going to have to start with an explanation for this.
Oh, man. So that is actually the end result of an April Fool's joke. And so it turns out that when I was at General Catalyst, I played a joke and actually just realized it wasn't April Fool's, but it was just a regular old prank. I filled someone's office with ball pit balls, not just like, oh, there's some on the floor, but deeper than the top of the desk. And so that was hilarious. It was 4 FedEx trucks filled to the top full of ball pit balls. It took my assistant almost an entire evening taking them out of the package and putting them into the office. And so General Catalyst thought this was very funny for 2 weeks. And then they were like, all right, great. But, Olivia needs her office back. So can you make these disappear? So I took them and I've got like a lab in Connecticut. And I have a giant ball pit there. And it's enormous and it's very deep. And I can tell you that you cannot swim in ball pit balls. You drown. You do not displace your weight. The good news, though, is that you can breathe even when submerged.
Well, I certainly approve of the idea that if you're not having fun or being somewhat childish, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. I think like irreverence is sort of the word I use for it.
I used another word in the intro, and that word is actually an abbreviation, but MSP, which stands for Managed Service Provider. And since that is our customer and a big part of your life, I do think for the audience, you're going to have to probably define it. So could you talk about what an MSP is and why that market's important?
Yeah, sure. So MSPs do the majority of IT work in America. If you have a small business, you probably don't have your own internal IT team. You outsource it to somebody local in your neighborhood, just the same way that you don't have your own plumber on staff either. So MSPs are involved in sort of making all of the IT work at the vast majority of businesses that exist in the United States, if I was just to count them up. So they're a super, super important part of the business ecosystem. And I'm very lucky that I built a company that built products for MSPs. And that's what allows me to afford FedEx trucks full of ball pit balls. And have since moved on and really excited to be working with Carlson to do something again for MSPs.
Terrific. And going to talk quite a bit about Cork, which the company we're all excited about and all working on together. But since so much of, I think, the ideas and the relationships and frankly, the staff comes from your previous company, Datto, I was hoping maybe you could share a little bit about that company. If there are any ball pit-like stories that come to mind, those are always welcome.
Oh, man. So Datto, I started it right out of college. I started with data backup disaster recovery. I bootstrapped the business for the first 6 years. And so didn't raise money until we had actually achieved quite a bit of success and then managed to continue to grow the business from there. We sold only to MSPs. So it was entirely through the channel. You could not buy our products off the website. And we called the MSPs our partners. And we really believed that in that our success was absolutely linked to their success. And it was taking that relationship so seriously that allowed Datto to really be so successful. And we were just as quirky as I am. And so we had a slide that went down between 3 different stories in the office. In our Rochester location, we had like a giant Lego wall, like a 4-story LED wall thing that we built ourselves, which is kind of crazy. There's just all sorts of weird, quirky stuff and things that we did that were all part of Datto. We had our own phone system, which had all sorts of weird, creepy hidden extensions that you could call for like various songs or like Family Guy quotes or literally just banana phone on repeat. So it's possible if you called support and someone didn't like you, they could send you to really annoying or offensive hold music. But yeah, just lots of really weird stuff like that.
I would love to be stuck on a loop with Rafi. Banana phone will always have a wonderful place in my heart.
It follows that classic comedic arc where it's like, it's funny, it's annoying, and then it's funny again.
Yeah.
And yeah, you just get to like ride that wave over and over and over.
Terrific. And how did you meet Carlson?
Carlson came to Datto after my tenure.
Yeah.
And it was more a case of was curious about trying to solve this cyber insurance problem, but realized that I don't want to go start another MSP company right now because I'm actually running a different business. And so I need a great CEO. And lots of people suggested Carlson and ended up getting dinner with him. And it was actually this case of like, we're talking about cyber insurance and it was like, hey, if somebody has a disaster, like they get ransomware, all these things, how do you get involved? How do you help them? And Carlson's just like, oh, our team would just join their Slack or Teams. We would just get right in there, like just be involved. And it was like that kind of attitude and that thinking. And that was his answer, which just absolutely crushed it compared to an enhanced priority queue in the phone tree kind of answer that we got from other prospective CEOs. And so it was like, oh, this is the guy. And now here we are.
There's definitely a common link between the two of you that I picked up on just sort of doing things, that being the most important thing, getting involved, kind of getting your hands dirty, even though we do sit in air-conditioned offices. But Carlson, this has been something that you have talked a lot about, kind of the customer obsession piece. So I'd love to understand kind of where that comes from, because you talk about it quite a lot.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's interesting, right? It came from my restaurant. By the way, before I started there, I will tell you that I attest the fact that ball pit is dangerous. If you jump in not thinking, you think the ball's going to hold you, you can actually lose people. I remember our first offsite at Cork. I had the team jump into the ball pit to take a photo. I literally almost lost 2 of my developers. They couldn't get out. We had to pull them out of this. So it is a deceiving deep depth in there in place. But all joking aside, I will tell you, right, it brings me back to the restaurant days. So prior to joining Datto, I was in the restaurant space and heading a global technology and digital innovation. And one of the first things they typically, when they bring in senior leader, is you spend 3 months working at restaurant. Like literally, I was working at backup lines. And one of the brand that we were franchisee of is actually Burger King. So I remember having to go and work in the backup line of a Burger King, flipping burger, assembling burger, doing lunch hour, which is probably the most rush in that standpoint.
Were you any good
at
it?
I was horrible. I was bad. First you look at this is the easiest thing, right? Look, how hard is it to get a burger, put in a patty, squeeze some ketchup on it? But when you got 15 of these orders like coming down the pipe, dude, I totally jack it up major. Now I did cause a different kind of disruption. It's called lunch disruption. And the manager came up to me and says, Sir Carlson, this is, you can kind of sit up here and watch us do. And you realize they have one of the hardest job. And that's probably where the moment I realized, no matter how great of a digital technology innovation you can create, that you think from the corporate office, oh, this bigger screen could help their life better, is having that conversation with them. Because I remember right after that, it's like, what can I do from a digital perspective to help you to do your job better? And that'll be the simplest thing. They go, well, can you increase the screen size by from 12 to 14 font size, 2 font size? But most people would think, oh, I need to have touch screen. No, they want bigger fonts so you actually can see it in the queue of the order. So that's probably the beginning I started realizing, if you listen to your customer, it makes your life a lot easier. You won't end up building everything that you think they need versus you build exactly what they need and they iterate that with you. So
cooking was not a career option for you after that point?
No, I failed. I'm terrible at it. I totally screwed up, complete disruption on that lunch line.
I made about like a C- busboy, I would say, during my tenure in university. Austin, I don't know if you have any jobs that you were particularly bad at.
No, I've only done web design and IT, and pretty much everything's been at a computer.
So far, so good.
So far, so good.
I was a pump boy at one point, a gas station. I actually helped people to pump gas, and also really bad at that too. So
Okay. But maybe you can talk about your career and things that you've been a little bit more successful at.
yeah, so I mean, leading up to this point, I think I probably have the most non-linear career. As my wife will put it, I can't seem to hold down a job more than 3 years. But if I put it in a linear path, I find myself jumping from one industry to the next, leading change, just kind of digitizing the world and doing things exactly what Austin talked about, right? It's like, all right, we used to setting up a queue. Well, why can't we just connect the customer directly to our engineer and solve the problem right there and then with Slack? That's always been my career, going from enterprise software to video games. Spent a good 10 years in that industry, then got into toys, restaurant. And then before that, I got into Datto, and really putting it all together. I think, Austin legacy was really not treating our customer, the MSP, as customer, treat them as partner. And partner has a very different meaning behind that, right? The partner is a two-way conversation. We're there for them when they need us. They are there for us when we need them. It really took my entire career to say, okay, as much great digitization I can create and disrupt a new industry or doing new things, the partnership with your customer is a really important aspect. Treating them as partner, not customer, because I do think that customer term is a one-way relationship versus partner is a two-way relationship. You're there to help them to make things better. And I think that is kind of how we carry forward into the Cork business.
And can maybe both of you tee off on other things that, maybe probably talk a little bit about what Cork does, but talk about why you were excited, because I very distinctly remember the first call that I had that Austin was on when we were pitching the idea with our partners from DVX, and it had kind of gone off into a engineering heavy, we're going to do this cyber insurance, we're going to quote them, we're going to pass them off to a broker, and Austin asked a series of extremely direct questions, I guess, that left us all spinning. So from the evolution to why we're excited today, if you could jump ball, but go ahead.
It's cyber insurance built from the ground up for MSPs. That's the piece that's so important, and that everything else is like, how do I take an existing product and kind of bolt it in or give them the ability to deal with it? But this is sort of the genius of converting it into a warranty product, setting it up so that the MSP can maintain the thing that matters to them. And so it, again, speaks back to Carlson's thing of touch screens or this or that. And it's in this case, what the MSP cares about, they want to own the relationship with the customer. Yep. And so we built cyber insurance that lets them own the relationship with the customer. And then, all right, great, we've got that piece. Then the next piece that you add in there is we want to reward you for doing the work that you're already doing. And so MSPs, those that follow best practices, they've got all the different pieces, whether it's backup, all the cybersecurity stuff, all the right policies, all these things in place. Each one of these is a way for you to save money because it's going to reduce cost overall. And that's basically the Cork secret sauce model right there, is putting those pieces together in a way that's super low friction. That makes something that's actually valuable to MSPs, is going to help them sort of fulfill this need, because everybody knows they need this cyber insurance.
Yeah. And Carlson, what are you spending your time doing on right now?
Talking to customer. I'm literally, before this call, I had a board update, but before that, it was on the call with the customer. And I'll kind of emphasize even more what Austin's saying is interesting, because the product was purely designed, started with the MSP, having a conversation. What is keeping you up at night with cyber insurance? And there were a couple of things that we identified as interesting. One was exactly that, is the underwriting process is painful. There's a bunch of paperwork you have to fill out. The moment you fill them out is outdated, right? The cyber world changes. And for that matter, different carrier have different forms. And in fact, when the MSP doesn't understand what is written on there, there's something wrong with that, right? Second to that, in their mind is, when there's a claim incident that does happen, guess what? They had to go through this long queue, 60, 70, 90, 100 plus days of a lot of work. And at the end, they might get denial from that perspective. Third, that's probably the biggest thing for them, is they felt that they left out the equation, the economic equation, meaning that they had to bring a broker in. The broker cannot pay them a fee because of the regulatory perspective. And the last thing they want to do is put in another seller with the customer, right? The small, medium business. So when we took a look at those are the three biggest pain points, let's flip the coin around and to say, okay, how do we make this easy? One, underwriting is extremely simple. We made it our platform. We just connected one of the existing technology stack. Nothing new. Nothing net new. The MSP will say, let me connect to one of my existing platform, the RMAP, remote monitoring management system. Boom. They can now underwrite, we carry on the risk for them. They can start selling the warranty. Number two is because they're the only carrier on that, we designed this to be a warranty versus a traditional insurance. The MSP themselves can actually sell this through to their client without having to bring in a broker. Now, they maintain that relationship. And by design, our coverage is very laser focused and incident that matters in the MSP space that they experience the most. And third, I think one of the most interesting things for us is that I said this in a couple other calls was that, we have claim that doesn't suck, right? Every time you hear the word claims, you think about, oh, dude, here we go. We're going to get a double root canal without Novocaine. That's what it feels like, right? So we're going to make it simple, not months, but days for the payout because we want the MSP to feel that if they put the time in to help the client environment safer, they get rewarded for that. For that matter, in the case of the client, they don't run out of cash before they, this thing is resolved. That's really what we're designing with.
That is super important, just that when somebody files a claim that we're on it right away. And it's not, how do we come up with reasons why we shouldn't pay or what do we need to do, this and that. It's like, no, we want to jump in there and really create and connect that partner relationship. And it matters too, because each of these MSPs, as far as we're concerned, it's all of our expansion growth as they deploy to more customers. And so if one of their customers has a problem, we've got to do really good by them because effectively all of their customers, we've got to continue to re-earn that business. So there's huge incentive for us to really go above and beyond there. And I can't wait for us to have the ability to demonstrate that.
And we kind of came into the light maybe a week ago. The launch has been getting quite a reaction. So Carlson, maybe you can talk a little bit about what the market's been telling us.
I would say, like I've shared this morning with the board, I said, I think we hit the nail right in the head, right? I think in the MSP call that I've been probably about 60 calls the last week, right? Majority of them, they saw how we can underwrite by just connecting one integration. They will go, wait, is that it? Like, no form? I go, I can send you a form to fill out if you feel better about it, but it's not needed, right? Because the more we connect into, we know what environment you have and the risk that you have in the environment. And then the next aha moment was that they go, wait, so all the client that shows here that I can buy warranty, I can now buy the warranty for them. Like it was almost like the big aha moment. And the third piece was, oh, so do I need to bring you into the sales process? No, just you're ready to sell. So like we got MSP that says, when can I start selling it? I said, well, onboard it. He's like, I'm going to start selling to the client now because it's pretty amazing to hear this feedback that we have gotten by purely at the beginning of development side before we start writing a line of code to say, MSP, what's keeping you up? We'll build a product based on that. And then you take it to the market and MSP said exactly that. So most of our, honestly, is no longer sales pitch. I told the team, go in, share the first 5 minutes, what we designed it with. And the rest of 25 minutes is MSP talking about, all right, how do I get on board? Ask more questions, they get more educated in that space. So it's been exciting to hear the response. So we have overwhelming response. We got a backlog of, customer and MSP want to come on board and we're excited. And I'm glad we created something that they want.
Yeah.
I recall us speaking, it must have been yesterday. I think you opened the call with like, Fraser, I think we've just invented a painkiller. There was that pause and then we went through the numbers and obviously tremendously exciting. Austin, you very famously bootstrapped data until you'd gotten to quite a bit of success. When you see this business, which, I think hopefully like data is going to be tremendously successful, but building a product for the MSPs from the ground up in a context of sort of being perhaps properly resourced for the ambitions of the company, are there any kind of lessons or takeaways that come to mind when you think about how different this journey's been?
I mean, I think it's awesome that Carlson has the resources, but he brings the same energy of like, we have to go and we've got to move now. That's what's so cool to see is just to get these engineers on board, but move to a shipping product so quickly. And it's making that path and just that urgency. And I think that's the biggest challenge that happens when you end up running a well-resourced startup is just that there's always like, oh, well, let's talk about this next week, or we'll come back next week, or think about this later, or I'll wait for my one-on-one to come up before I bring that up. And it's just like, no, we need to like make this happen now. So Carlson really brings that energy to turn the crank. And in that case, he really makes the dollars go far. And we can see that with this launch and just how excited people are.
Yeah, and I'll add that it's interesting because I said with the team when I first started, right? They go, oh, what's our core value of our team? I use the acronym GSD, so you can guess, somebody called get stuff done. And then, you can imagine what the real S that I go after is. But that's a mantra, right? You can strategize all day, but if you can't execute, it's not worth anything. It becomes hallucination. So the mantra, like even like the last, set of calls we had, we end up finding that about 10 MSP has a very specific technology stack that we currently don't support yet, right? It's in our roadmap. The moment we hit that trigger point of about 6 of them and see, wait a minute, the MSP is asking for this and he can't wait to start selling it. I literally pull my CTO in the room, get the engineering team to go, okay, what does it take to pull this thing forward? But are we going to compromise at least our initial launch? They go, all right, let's see what we can do. And also, next thing you know, something that would have taken 6 months out in the roadmap, we pulled that forward. And a month from now, we're going to be able to support that specific tech stack. Then the MSP comes through the door. So for me, it's like, my head of product says, oh, how do we build a roadmap? It's simple. Talk to the MSP, talk to the customer, talk to a partner, not customer, the partner. They will tell you what they need. And they will tell you if it sucks, guess what? Fix it when they think it sucks. And that's the best kind of feedback you can get.
Your kind of lead off around core values is quite topical because I wanted to talk a lot about culture. At Vestigo, we basically try to help startups focus on 3 things: finding product market fit, finding the price that the market will pay for the product, which makes the sort of dollars and cents make sense for the business, and then help them define culture. And after the advisory board meeting the other day, we were having lunch and I was sitting next to Rebecca, and she was just, really waxing lyrical about the culture at Datto and how that's been brought over to Cork. And I just really never experienced that before. It was not like I was queuing her up for that. She just genuinely felt that way. And when I asked her, were there any things from Datto that you wouldn't want to bring over to Cork? She said, the one thing I wouldn't bring over was when we went fully remote at Datto, we really went fully remote and I didn't get to see my teammates physically anymore. And I missed that. So as the only cultural criticism being you didn't spend enough physical time with your colleagues, that's kind of like saying, what's my flaw? Well, I'm a perfectionist. I suspect that culture was a massive market advantage for Datto and its success. And Austin, maybe you can talk about how you think about building culture, or was it? I don't think it was.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, you have to live culture. You can't just write it down and be like, oh, we are these things. And so the culture has to be honest to who you are. And the Datto stuff is interesting because Datto had a unique culture, had an awesome culture, but Datto's culture was also not for everyone. And so there's like certain subset of people, and they would actually wash out like in new hire training, and they would just go, this is not for me. And so there's this huge confirmation bias that the people who worked at Datto and worked at Datto a while really like the culture there.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, yeah, they probably go hand in hand. I think a lot of it's at its core is integrity, but really just pushing that to like being okay, being challenged. And this sort of concept that we work really hard to hire smart, capable people. And when you give smart, capable people the right context, they make the right decision. And when people make the wrong decision, almost always it's because they don't have the right context. And so that means you want to operate in an organization with very low secrecy. You want to tell everybody everything. You want to bring people into the loop as much as possible. And then you do stuff to try to take some of those barriers down. And we're big proponents of like ask for forgiveness over permission and just trying to like push to do things. And at Datto, we had talked a lot about always doing what's right versus what's profitable. And that by doing the right thing, like you'll end up doing the profitable thing. And what that means when, okay, great, you got hired in ops, don't buy the $9 keyboard for everyone because $9 keyboards are garbage. Yeah. Buy the right thing, buy the stuff that people are going to like. And so it's like each of these different steps of, try not to shortchange either the customer or your coworkers or really anybody. And then the last piece is sort of, what's probably the most important, I think the one that people would quote the most, which is come do your life's work here. And a backup company doesn't seem like the place that people would really think they're doing their life's work, but you would be surprised when they see the impact they're having, when they see their own personal growth, when they see the growth of the business, you really do feel like you're accomplishing something and you're making it happen. And that means that you also want to make it fun. You want to make it quirky. You want to make it an expression of your personality. You want to do all these things because it's your life's work.
Yeah.
Carlson, you've been jumping up and down.
Yeah. Let me add that in there. It's interesting because I spent a full career in a lot of, I would say, big corporate company that they will have multiple PowerPoint deck that talks about here's our value. But if you think about it, a lot of time they don't live by it, right? And I remember when I first got the data, I was like, all right, here we go, right? Everybody say the same thing. But I can tell you within a matter of a month, I was like, this is crazy. People live this culture. And this is probably data was probably one of the first places I've been to where I go, oh, I can hang here. Like I can really see myself thriving because there's no BS. It's literally full transparency. Like, I was reporting to the CEO, Tim, but there was full transparency to all levels. So like the staff knows what's happening. You know what's needed. And what's more important, every employee feels like they own part of the company. They don't go, well, I'm just the front desk person. No big deal. No, they go, I'm an owner of data. Like that's a mindset they've created. I think that, Austin, you guys have created in that place. And so when we kind of started Cork, I remember the comments over dinner. I think one of the things was Austin saying, we got to create data-like culture here. And that's a lot of the mindset here. Every one of my team members, I tell them, you're owner of this company. You're owner of Cork, right? More important, you need to do what's right. Make sure that when you come here, you feel like you are doing your life work, carrying that forward. You don't feel like you're working. You feel like you're doing the right thing for the people that you serve, the people that you partner with, for that matter, for the partner at the end. Go do it. Don't worry about getting the permission. There's no process. We're a team of, small team right now. But that mindset was even there at that, which was amazing. And I think a lot of folks who walk away think that's a culture we want to recreate and continue that forward. Now, to kind of go back to your question, where Rebecca said, oh, we met, how do we do this in person? We have a really interesting thing that we now starting to do an experiment where the team as a whole team, we meet every 6 weeks together. Make sure that we're all aligned, getting everybody back in, making that time fun, not just meeting. We go have fun, some team building. And for those who are local to each other, I encourage them, hey, once we go have happy hour, spend some time together working together as a team. And honestly, it's been working extremely well. I think it's going to show the result. We went from paper to build of a product to launching in a matter of, I think, almost 6 months. I think this model will be kind of the new culture that we can experiment in this new world where there's a hybrid virtual and in person. So we're mixing that in and we're trying, ongoing basis. And I go back and ask a team member, is there anything I can do better to continue to build this culture that is ours, right?
If we pivot a little bit back to the people that are maybe perhaps the most important for this podcast, which are our MSP partners, what's the experience that they are going to have if they work with us, if they sign up? What's that onboarding going to look like? What's it going to enable them to do with their customers?
It's going to be simple and painless, right? I mean, I think it goes back to the analogy that painkiller. We know this has been a pain point for them. Every one of the partners who have started to play with the onboarding, like, this is so easy. This addresses the needs that we have in place. The second they can assure that we are the partner in place. There's a lot of question in a lot of the onboarding conversations. Like, well, what if my client drop off halfway through the contract? Go, look, we're partner, right? So we're going to make sure you're taken care of so that you can take care of us. And third, full level of transparency. And I think I've learned this from the days, what I've heard from early day datos with full transparency with the partner of where our product is at, right? There's nothing to hide. I'm going to tell you where we stand. You're here in this journey with us together. Help us to build it for what you need and your client needs. So that's kind of how we look at it for the MSP to know the coming on and what they can expect.
And if we talk about the problem that we're solving, I recall when we were doing the early ideation for this business, I spoke to a broker about what it takes to put together kind of a scaled enterprise cyber program. And I believe she said to me that it would take probably 9 carriers to put together a $15 million cyber program. I mean, it was like absurd. That's like that can't be possible. Austin, as someone who has thought about the needs of MSPs for a long time and built essentially a cybersecurity business around the MSP world, what has been, to your date, your experience with cyber? How long had you been thinking about cyber insurance as an issue?
It's just been this outlier. And if anything, it's comically clunky. And we would purchase it for ourselves at Datto and it just has a price and you just buy it and you're like, how does this make any sense? And it felt like something that the board obligated us to buy that honestly we could never call in, like if something actually happened. Mm-hmm. And then, when you talk to the people there, as you peel back another layer, it's like their thinking around it is super backward, and it feels almost like the HIPAA and PCI compliance type stuff, that sometimes that stuff can just get comically strange. And they're like, oh, you need a BAA agreement between all these different people, and it's got to be a HIPAA this and a HIPAA that. And it's like, well, do I need a HIPAA certified hard drive? Because they don't sell those. And they're like, oh, well, then you don't need one. And it's like, what? It doesn't even make any sense. Like, you just, where the buck stops on any of these things is clueless. Each of these pieces is just like, huh? And so, yeah, I think the thought process is like, how do we help MSPs, one, provide insurance that they're actually going to use? We want it to be like, hey, something happened. It's bad. These guys got ransomware. We did everything we thought we should do. And that's where, Carlson's like, yeah, we want to be in the Slack channel, helping them get better. And we want to wire the money right away. And so just be there. And then how do we make the sign-up process as painless as possible? That whole flow has to be really, really good. And we, at one point, were looking and we should just create a sign-up form that all it is just paste the key in from your RMN, right? And we'll just go populate everything about your business and just go from there. But it's like trying to be that straightforward. We should never ask you a question that we could get the answer some other way. And all these computers should be able to talk to each other. And so that's what we're really pushing to do, and to make this easy and straightforward so that MSPs sell more of it, which ultimately just helps everybody down the road.
And by the way, Austin, have you been like listening to my staff meeting? Because a mix of staff meeting is like half engineers, right? And the other half are folks from the insurance space. It's literally the conversation went in place. Is this HIPAA? You have all these different policy. But what I found was interesting, we talked about 9 different broker, is because in the insurance space, is the word old? Can I use that? Like, it's such a,
if we get so canceled for using the word old, I'm ready.
Yeah. It's like, it's crazy, right? And I asked, I keep digging down. Tell me why. Well, because this is the rule. I go, where's the rule rooted from? Because you're telling me your underwriting is based on historical incident, but in the cyber world, the moment that a patch goes in, that incident is no longer valid for underwriting. So all of a sudden, when I start opening up and say, by the way, our platform now got inside data, right? Plugging into the technology stack of MSP, we're pulling real-time data telemetry. Isn't that even better than historical data of what happened? And then when that light bulb kicks in, all my insurance folks go, oh, wait a minute, we can actually do this. So all of a sudden, these policy no longer applies, because now the regulator can say, by the way, instead of giving you old data of what happened 10 years ago, we actually have real data right now and then at the point of incident for you right now.
Well, and for us,
aha moment.
It gets even cooler than that, in that we're going to be able to build on this data set. And so we're seeing what are the tools that people are using, what are the practices that people are employing, and we'll know at scale which practices work and which practices don't. And so, one, we can reward the people with the practices that work with lower rates, but we can also share that out to the MSP industry as a whole and be like, hey, these things dramatically reduce the odds that you'll need to make a claim. And we'll be able to see that and track it. And that's what's so cool when you actually start to think about this business at scale. It's just that the benefits for MSPs only compound.
If they make the environment safer and keep up to date, the premium will adjust accordingly for them, and they get rewarded for it. That's the way that is so unique. No insurance company will do that. They want to go, keep raising premium to cover ourselves, right?
Well, but it's even better because the MSP is reselling. That premium change, they can either choose to pocket or pass on. But so they do the right things, their practices work, their premiums go down. MSPs make more money, or they can pass some of those savings on to their customer.
That's right.
But they get to make the choice. And that's what's so powerful about the way that it's set up and about them maintaining that relationship.
There are few business models where it seems to me that so many people are going to get to win. What I love is that we're leveraging all the world-class cybersecurity software that's already been developed and helping improve the efficacy of it by monitoring behaviors and kind of enforcing compliance. It's extremely exciting.
Yeah. I mean, those that don't make good cybersecurity will notice that, and they won't get the premium discount. So those people won't win. Yeah. We're sort of doing like a smoke detector bake-off here, and we're going to find out which ones actually work.
Yep.
So it's clear to me the onboarding experience is just going to be simpler. our pricing is going to make more sense for everybody. And that's going to be tremendous in the coming months. What about if we think about the journey going forward? Are there other things that we can talk about, that we want to do, almost unhinged levels of ambition, that we want to help our MSP partners succeed with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll put a little thought on that, right? So I think the recipe of listening to your partner has worked for many years, right? For a company like Datto and those who serve in the MSP space. That's definitely the MSP partner will be the driver of the roadmap. One thing I do know, we are probably going to have different type of product along the way because the world is only become more digitized, right? If you think about it, I mean, I look at my house the other night, my router blew out for some crazy reason in the middle of the night. And then I woke up, nothing worked. And I realized I got 100 plus devices in the house. And I'm sitting going, wow, look at the opportunity for us to think about, right? We're starting as simple as a business level, protecting their environment. What are the opportunity as an MSP tells us? Are there a way that they can continue to expand their business to better serve the SMB or better serve the user of the SMB? We don't know we know it's probably trajectory is going to go in that direction, but the guiding principle is going to be what is our partner going to need for them to continue to serve their client better? That's kind of how we see the product roadmap from that standpoint. So you probably will see other product coming out. What it is, what shape it is probably continue focusing on cyber protection in a more than ever digitized world, right?
Austin, anything from you?
I mean, I don't want to give away all the secrets here, but I think that there's just continual opportunity to stay focused and aligned with MSPs. Sure. And far too often businesses think about MSPs as an afterthought, or they come out and they're like, their margin is my profit, and they're coming to take that margin. And I think that we look at it in a completely different way, and we want to help build and see these MSPs continue to grow and succeed. And this is such a great way for us to get connected and be part of their stack. And the adjacencies that we're going to be able to build around that are going to be massive.
Before we let you go, because I know we're running close to time, our audience consists of a lot of early stage founders. And, as you two build this business together, Austin, you're in a slightly different seat than you were last time. But what are the things that you and Carlson talk about the most as we grow and as we scale, sort of thinking about lessons that you learned from the last time you did this with Datto?
I mean, the cliche answer is hiring people, and like businesses are people. They're people more than anything else. And so how do you hire the right people? And then how do you give them the context they need to be successful? Beyond that, I would say don't get too caught up in the hype. And so we're not Cork.ai.
Not yet.
We may have asked Dolly to help us with our board images and some of the marketing graphics so that we could say we use AI. But beyond that, there's not a need to go chase the new hotness, and instead looking for that customer and being like, hey, we're going to build something that's really valuable for them. We're going to build something that they want. Carlson and I get in a lot of robust debates about, is this valuable enough? Is this easy enough? And so there's so many layers of that, and how we came to the pricing and the benefits levels and what the different tiers mean. Just a lot of back and forth there. But I'm really happy that we came out with something that's so clean and so simple. And that was the end goal. But it can be a big fight to get there sometimes.
In case there are any VCs listening, please disregard that answer. We use generative AI basically in everything we do. Sorry, Carlson.
Yeah, I'm actually just generative AI. Like I don't exist as a person.
Yeah. I'm actually an AI here. I'm not the real being, right? I got AI running.
Yeah, I'm glad we cleared that up. I just want to do a couple human interest things while I have you, unless, any parting thoughts you have to questions I should have asked.
No, I think you're good.
All right. Okay. From both of you, who impresses you?
I mean, a lot of people impress me.
You're
trying to think of, well, it fit into the a lot category. I mean, I think it's the folks that really are unafraid to jump into the unknown. You see it in these founders that come pitch you, that come talk to you, that have crazy ideas, and like always impressed at the amount of chutzpah that some people have and their ability and their confidence to make this stuff happen. And those that actually truly feel it and believe it can go build and do big things. And that's exciting that I get to meet all these impressive people all the time.
Carlson?
So for me, I would pick Elon Musk is a good one because he's kind of crazy. The dude got like multiple business running. I don't know if he ever sleep, but I think the one thing that I really subscribe to and is a lot of my working style, when things doesn't go right, he jumps all the way down to where the root of the problem is and fixes it. He doesn't like let me call an immediate meeting. No, he gets right down, roll up his sleeve and get the problem solved. So I think he's definitely in that mindset. It's very similar to how I've been working in my entire career, right? Now, the one thing I would not follow him is his marriage advice. The dude is just like, he could not stay, his relationship advice, probably steer away from that.
I mean, I don't know. You shouldn't have bought Twitter. Because part of it is you got to know your lane. The whole world is like, dude, we'll give you rockets and electric cars. Those are pretty cool lanes. And they're like, hey, you want to do tunnels?
Twitter.
Have fun with tunnels, right? But then he's like, you know what I want to do? I want to be social media and be another Zuckerberg-esque. And it's like, why? It's like, you're the hero long enough to become the villain. And the fact that he doesn't know, he doesn't have the wherewithal to pick a lane is tough. And just because you're really good at some things doesn't mean that you'll be really good at all things always forever.
Yeah.
Like I look back and personally, while it was a selfish decision, leaving Datto was like one of the better choices I ever made in my life. And so it's super important to like also be able to stop or say, this is enough versus just running to infinity.
Love that. Okay. Next one is, I like that this actually just sort of turned into a conversation. What piece of media, book, podcast, movie, article, essay have you gifted or shared the most?
The book, Predictably Irrational, which the first third is really good and it has diminishing returns, but the first third is really, really good and just basically covers that people are not rational. They don't behave like computers. They don't make, decisions based on the logic the way that you think they would and how you can use that in your favor. And then more recently, Elad Gil's piece around the startup ecosystem right now and sort of the fact that there are a bunch of zombie unicorns out there and how to get the default alive and then whether or not that would actually matter for you and should you just return the money now? Like it's just an incredible 10,000 words on how a founder should think through a lot of these cases if you're caught up in the zero interest rate phenomenon. And so I just thought it was really well done.
So for me, it's the book called Growth Hacker Marketing by Ryan Holiday. I give that, like everyone who ever worked for me, I made them read that book because it breaks the old way of working where, I got to have a marketing plan. I got to have a strategy. It really talks about you can only plan so much. And then it's getting the iterations about continue to iterate the way you work, even in your marketing space, to drive into being very much customer centric, being obsessed with what your customer wants and get what they need. So that's the one that every employee that ever worked for me, they gets a copy of it.
Final question. What fascinates you today or is a topic you think people should learn more about?
I think people should learn more about how to make physical stuff, especially if you're a software engineer. And the people who think that they're pioneers and geniuses at making virtual things should pick up a hobby of making physical things because it's a world where people have pretty much, we've gotten pretty good at it and we understand a lot of it. And it's also a lot more humbling. Yeah.
I'll say it's ChatGPT. If you haven't done it, shame on you. Better go do it because I think what's interesting is that with ChatGPT, you can figure out how to automate, how it's going to end up replacing a lot of things that we take by default, our value and our skill. Then you can now have them have ChatGPT do a lot of the basic and then hands up on that. I think anybody who put time in it right now will have an advantage to anyone else in probably within a year because they have automated things that you're used to not automating, right?
But they have to go into it with a mission. Like use ChatGPT to clean up your resume and see what happens.
Love that. Gentlemen, this has been an absolute joy and a treat. We're going to have to do this again in a year or so, maybe in person in Cambridge. Thank you so much for making the time.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thanks so much.
Hello again, friends, and thank you very much for listening till the end. One final thing before you go. If you enjoyed this episode, do you also think you might enjoy getting a monthly email from us where we share more stories, news, and perspectives from our early stage fintech ecosystem? If you think the answer might be yes, head over to our website, vestigoventures.com, and sign up for our Envisions newsletter. In addition to blog posts with our latest thinking and updates from our portfolio companies, we always include a short video interview with incredible people from our network. If you do sign up, I hope you enjoy it.